بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وكفى، والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى، ولا سيما سيدنا محمدا المصطفى صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله أهل الوفا وأصحابه أهل الصفا، وعلى من بآثاره مقتدى واهتدى. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما والحقنا بعبادك الصالحين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وآله في الأولين، وصل على سيدنا محمد وآله في الآخرين، وصل على سيدنا محمد وآله في الملأ الأعلى إلى يوم الدين، وعنا معهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. أما بعد، فالسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. I'd like to start with asking you two things before I start. Number one is I'd like to ask you to make salat and salam on the Prophet ﷺ, whatever way you want to make it. No, I don't want you just to make it with your tongues. I want you to make salat and salam on the Prophet ﷺ with your heart. I know we always say it with our tongues, but I'd like to sort of penetrate from the tongue to the heart. Usually it's supposed to be the other way around. In other words, the heart does it and then the tongue translates what's in the heart. Right? The poet says, إِنَّ الْكَلَامَ لَفِي الْفُؤَادِ وَإِنَّمَا جُعِلَ اللِّسَانُ عَلَى الْفُؤَادِ دَلِيلًا. The speech, the poet says, the speech is really in the heart. Your talk, when you want to talk something, it's in the heart. Sayyidina Umar says, زَوَرْتُ فِي نَفْسِي مَقَالًا. I prepared something in my heart. I haven't even said it. Right? But he says the tongue is the translator of the heart. Continuation to what Shaykh Allah mentioned, right? The language of the hearts. So when we make salam on the Prophet ﷺ, today we're here to talk about his Seerah, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. So, من باب أولى, يعني more prioritized, since we're going to be talking about him, that we try to feel the sweetness of mentioning his name, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and making that with our hearts, not only with our tongues. We want to sort of try to remove the little barriers that prevent us from tasting the sweetness of loving Rasulullah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So so that things are meaningful now, not simply meaningless, right? Just a little touch, so we can taste. I always say that taste buds have no curfew. So let's taste. And everybody has their own taste buds. Right? We're not going to go into the medical. There's 3 kinds actually of taste buds, but let's not go there. And the sulcus terminalis and all that stuff. We want to taste the love and the closeness, because our life is void of that love and closeness, because we deal with numbers all the time. Everything in life becomes numbers now. How much, when, where, everything is like dollars and cents, not dollars and cents, or here, maybe you say pounds and pence. Right? Am I correct? Pence, you say?
That's right. Shilling's a long time ago.
Okay. So we want to say, instead of dollars and cents, we want to have cents. We want to sharpen our relationship a little bit, so we can feel the massive oceans of spirituality that the Prophet ﷺ Seerah provides all of us. So I'd like to keep reminding you that when you hear his name, ﷺ, make salat and salam on him, but I want you to make it with your heart as much as you can remember, not only with your tongue. So now we feel also when we say to other people, I love you, you know how that goes. Really love. It's not just a word that you say. It's an overwhelming state that overtakes you. Not simply a word. That's why they say it's the biggest lie in the world, right? I don't know what I mean. The second thing I'd like to ask you also to smile, please. Can you ever smile? Just a little bit. Number one, you're doing a sunnah, so that I'm getting the reward off of you. It's not like I'm doing that just for you. I'm actually making money off of you right now. Because I'm making you smile, which is a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Also, you move your zygomaticus muscle, which is really beneficial every now and then, because we're frowning all the time. It's nice to smile. For no reason, yes, it's okay. Smiling for no reason. Wow, forgotten sunnah of Rasulullah. Well, there is a reason. The reason is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you and gave you all these things. Isn't that worth a smile? A significant of a pleasure with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and satisfaction with His decree rather than always acting displeased with Allah's decree? Never happy. No, I'm not happy now in school. I'm not happy about this. Not happy. So we spend our times in our youth unhappy. When we grow older, then we're not happy about them. We wish we can go back. It's always like swinging. We're never happy. Be happy. Yeah, enjoy your life. Hadith ibn Umar. Sahih. When he tells him, take from your time of youth for your time of when you are older. So means what? Use your time. Maximize your opportunity in every phase of your life. There's so much beauty around you, but you have to open your eyes to see it. Don't get bogged down by all the negativity all the time. It's easy to do so. When a poet says this, I always refer to poets because poets are so sensitive, right? They look at a flower, like Shaykh Ahmed was mentioning, and they see beauty in it. Some people, they walk by a nice flower and they don't even recognize it. They can't see the beauty. Again, the poet looks at the flower and not only recognizes the beauty, but it's a source of inspiration to see how beautiful the creation of Allah is. Therefore, the poet says, وَمَنْ تَكُنْ نَفْسُهُ بِغَيْرِ جَمَالٍ لَا يَرَى فِي الْكَوْنِ شَيْئًا جَمِيلًا. Whose self, the meaning of the line is, whose self is void of beauty, does not see anything beautiful. So it's always negative, but when you're filled with beauty, you recognize beauty. So recognize that. And therefore, recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked you to thank Him. Not because He needs our thanks, but because we do. It's like someone, and again, I'm not trying to compare Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the creation, but you go from, let's say we're here at University of Cambridge, we want to go now to Manchester later on today. So now you have a GPS system. What do you call that? We call it GPS. What do you call it? Satellite?
Sat-nav. It stands for satellite navigation, actually.
Okay. So satellite navigation. Here you go. You start from this point. You will have this time. You'll end successfully at your final destination. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us all these things. So, smiling, seeing some people smiling. You don't have to laugh, but at least smile.
I think you should just stop until everyone smiles and then go on. I've seen someone do it at talk, it's very effective.
Thanks for the suggestion.
Mechanisms are at TED.com, everyone go Google when you go home. You all have Google.
Thanks for the thoughts. There you go, thinking. What did I tell you about that? Khair, inshallah. Let's start with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm just joking with her because she interrupted me a couple of times when I was talking. When she was talking to me
back, just because he's a Shaykh.
earlier, so I figured I'll get back at her. Let's go back to the Quran. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَالَّذِينَ تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ وَلَا يَجِدُونَ فِي صُدُورِهِمْ حَاجَةً مِمَّا أُوتُوا وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Beautiful ayah. I would love to request every single one of you to go home tonight and read it. Just look at this ayah. في سورة الحشر. Right? And I'll tell you the meaning of the general meaning of the ayah as best as I can. وَالَّذِينَ تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانَ. The meaning of the ayah, those who entered the home. Dar means home. Wal-Iman, those who entered the home and the faith. Min qablihim, before the other ones. يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ. That's the first portion of the ayah. Then the second portion of the ayah, they love those who migrate over to them. وَلَا يَجِدُونَ فِي صُدُورِهِمْ حَاجَةً مِمَّا أُوتُوا. And they're not jealous. They don't find anything in their hearts against those who have been given things. وَيُؤْثِرُونَ. The fourth part of the ayah, يُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ. And they favor others over themselves. وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. Even if they are in dire need. Then Allah says, the last portion of the ayah, وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ. He or she who is saved from their own greed or being a miser. Greed that leads to being a miser. شُحْ. فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. They are indeed the successful ones. Okay. Please keep this ayah in your mind because I'm going to go back and refer to it, and I'm going to try just to dive as much as I can or as deep as I'm capacitated to in the oceans of this ayah to pick up some pearls and maybe fly in its heavens to see the shining of some of its stars. But I will try to go back to it, and I won't claim that I will give it its full right. But we will take from the Quran whatever we are capacitated to at this point in time. وَالَّذِينَ تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانَ. Before anything, this ayah, Asbab al-Nuzul, it came in the Ansar radiallahu anhum. You know, Sahaba radiallahu anhum, two kinds, right? At the beginning. Muhajirin and Ansar. Muhajirin means what? Migrants or immigrants, right? What do you call them? Which one is more correct? Because English is not my first language. I was going to say ain't my first language. English is not my first language, so which is migrants or immigrants? Immigrants is migrants?
Migrants is another country.
Okay. So, Muhajirin means migrants, those who migrated from Mecca, their home, to Medina, which became home. Ansar, which means supporters, those who were in Medina. And they were the receivers, they received them. This ayah was revealed in the Ansar, radiallahu ta'ala ajma'in. Those who were the inhabitants of Medina, and they received the migrants. Allah says, which means that you know now how it is, since it came in the Ansar. Let's go through the ayah one more time to sort of make sure that we've got the meanings right of the entire ayah. وَالَّذِينَ تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانَ. Those Ansar who entered the home and Iman before the other, before the Muhajirin. Wait a minute, who became Muslims first, the Muhajirin or the Ansar? Who became Muslims first, the people in Mecca or the people in Medina?
These are mainly English people. You just tell them it's rhetorical.
Muhajirin, right? People in Mecca first. The people in Mecca around the Prophet ﷺ. Where was the first 13 years of the life of the da'wah of the Prophet ﷺ was 23 years, correct? The first 13 years was in Mecca. The last 10 years was in Medina. We agree? Great. So how come, so the first people who believed in him were in Mecca. So how come Allah says, وَالَّذِينَ تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ? Those Ansar who entered the home, or entered home and the faith before the Muhajirin, before the immigrants, or the migrants. I understand if they entered the home. Home does not mean the house necessarily. Dar in the Arabic language means home. But home could mean a house where you live in, and home could be your city. Let's say if you go to London, and you meet some friends, you're saying at the end of the day, I'm going home. Well, where's home? Cambridge. Home is a city. Or if you go, let's say, to Belgium to meet some other friends, now you're applying international relations. You say, I'm going home. Where's home? England. The country becomes home. So it could be a house, home, your own dar, or it could be a city, your dar, your home, or it could be the country, your home. If you go to Mars, Earth becomes home. Well, probably we won't go there anytime soon. There we go. So Allah says, وَالَّذِينَ تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانَ. Those who entered home. He calls Medina, the Quran calls the city of Medina, Al-Madina al-Munawwara, calls it ad-dar, home. Wow. Home. Al-Madina. Who lives in Al-Ansar, where do they live? They live in Medina, right? Those who entered home and faith first. Well, Al-Muhajirin really were first in a sense, but there's a group of Ansar, the 70, Bay'at al-Aqaba, and the pledge of Aqaba, those 70, and there's 12 Naqib, and all these things. These people became Muslims in Mecca, and they came back to Medina before the Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina, and they changed the entire city, the entire Medina into Muslims. Before the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina. Therefore, you now should be asking yourself, or you already should know, because when the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina, everyone in there was sitting saying what? طلع البدر علينا من ثنيات الوداع وجب الشكر علينا ما دعا. So how come the city was all ready? Because these people who came first became Muslims at the hands of the Prophet ﷺ. Before he came to Mecca, they went home and they worked hard on the people. They changed the whole city into Muslims. And then they made it ready for the arrival of the best of the creation, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, afterwards. So Allah says, وَالَّذِينَ تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Before the migrants, they were Muslims. Then Allah says, يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ. They love those who migrate to Medina, to them. Medina is their home. They love those who migrate to them. وَلَا يَجِدُونَ فِي صُدُورِهِمْ حَاجَةً مِمَّا أُوتُوا. And the Ansar do not have anything in their hearts against the money that is given to the migrants, to the Muhajirin. Not only that, وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. They would favor them, and others, the Ansar would favor the Muhajirin, and others over themselves, even if they're in desperate need. Then Allah says, وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Those those who are saved from the ill desires of greed and being a miser are those who are indeed successful. Is the ayah clear in general? The atmospheres of the ayah, are they clear? Well, the ayah was revealed when the people of Mecca migrated to Madina. It's not home. Madina is not home for them. At that time, from Medina, it takes 7-8 days, day and night, driving with a camel. Right? Because camel is all you can also do. But since it's in the desert, it's also 4x4, four-wheel drive. And camel is also 4x4, four-wheel drive. So it took 7 days, 8 days to drive, in a sense, or to ride a camel from Mecca to Medina. It's not home. People of Mecca are different than the people of Medina. Different culture, different tribes, different habits, different atmosphere, even different weather. They migrated, the Meccans migrated to Medina, the Meccan Muslims. Wait a minute. The migration was of two kinds. Some people in Mecca were forced to migrate. Look, I know all of you are college students. So, that means I entrust that you are all academic in your deduction and imbibing of the meanings. I'm not going to be spoon-feeding you the lessons. I'm going to showcase to you the lessons, and I entrust that you'll imbibe from them in the lessons. Right? This is second, so we can sort of work our analytical skills. Because you can actually deduce so many things from one thing. So, the people from Mecca, the Muslims in Mecca, some of them were forced to leave their homes. What does that mean? Because Mecca at that time, like the Shaykh was mentioning, there were no rights. No animal, no human, doesn't make any difference. The only right was might. Might made right. If you have the might, it gave you right. See, this is the society in which the Prophet ﷺ came. The law of the jungle. Well, I should not even say that. Because even the jungle has some certain laws, and at times we don't. The danger in the law of jungle is very simple. Some people are the tyrants who drive all that, but most people follow the tyranny. They simply go along. They endorse that. They don't stand for the truth. So then, not only the few tyrants are the ones who are subjugating entire Mecca at that time, but then the whole population is going along with it. It makes the whole society up. I'll tell you. Should I tell you the story? Is it okay?
I want to talk, so
Okay, can I tell you a story? هذا الإمام الدميري رحمه الله من دميرة الدقهلية, which is now in Egypt. He's faqih Shafi'i. About 500-600 years ago, died rahimahullah. He mentions this story. He mentions 3 animals in the jungle. He says the lion, the fox, and the coyote. 3. That's it. الذئب وابن أعوى. Says they're going around one day, so they hunted, or they found a dead cow, sheep, and a chicken. Your meal is secured for the day. So the lion, the king of the jungle, asked both the fox, well, you know the fox is very cunning, and the coyote. He says, the lion says, dear coyote, we've got a cow, we've got a sheep, we've got a chicken. How do you think we should split them? How do we eat them? You know, the division. He says, Your Majesty, the coyote is saying now, Your Majesty is very simple. You are the king, you have the cow. And to the fox, you give him the sheep. And I'm happy to be with the chicken. Give me the chicken, I'm okay. The coyote did not finish his words, except with the lion taking his hand and claws and chopping his neck, separating his head from his body. The head of the coyote was rolling in front of the fox and everyone there without telling him anything. The lion now turned to the fox. Dear fox, Assalamu alaikum. Salam. He says, now we have a cow, we have a sheep, we have a chicken, there's me and you. How do you suggest we split them? He says, the fox says, Your Majesty, it's very, very simple. For breakfast you eat the cow, for lunch you eat the sheep, and for dinner you snack on the chicken. Lion, he says, Ajib. هذا العدل من أين تعلمته? Where did you learn this kind of justice? How to be so fair and just? Where did you learn it from? This kind of justice, هذا العدل نموذج هذا العدل والفهم. Where did you learn it from? He says, علمني رأس ابن آوى. Did you see the head of Ibn Awa? That's where I learned justice. So people follow like sheep then, if you want to may say. There's no more thinking. The whole society becomes tyrannical then, in a sense. The Muslims in the Meccan period did not say, we're going to fight you. No fight. We just want to live and practice La ilaha illallah. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we're not going to bother you. That was not good enough for the tyranny of Mecca at that time. They confiscated their properties. They destroyed their homes. They killed the people for simply saying the word. They're not doing anything. At that time there was no zakah, there was no hajj. In Mecca there was no zakah, there was no hajj. Al-Furud was not there yet. People are simply learning that there's no creator but one. Even that, the Meccan system did not want to tolerate. Kill them. That was the answer. Brings you the old thing. The old struggle of humanity. The logic of power versus the power of logic. Always like that. Al-Anbiya alayhim salam came with the power of logic. Wal-Ashqiya wal-Zalimin always can come with the logic of power. Shaitan. Okay. So some people were forced to migrate. Nobody wants to leave their homes. Nobody wants to leave where they grew up. Nobody wants to leave where their families are. Some people were forced out of Mecca. Some people, they ran away, escaped from Mecca. Refugees, they went from Mecca because they feared persecution that was coming to them. When those two groups arrived in Madina, which is about, 250 miles away? Something like that from Mecca, right? It's 250 miles away, let's say, roughly, I'm not sure. About 4.5 hours, maybe, by car. When those migrants who were forced out of their homes, mind you, when you're running away, fearing for your life, if they haven't already destroyed your home and whatever you own, and haven't already confiscated every piece of wealth that you have, if you can run away safely with the clothes on your back, then you have already accomplished saving your own life. So these migrants who left Mecca to Medina, they arrived in Medina with what? Barely the clothes on their back. Nothing. Wait a minute. The people, the Ansar, radiallahu, those are the Muhajirin. Now, the Ansar, they were the inhabitants of Medina. There's these farms they have, land in Medina, the palm trees, the fruits of the palm trees, wealth. They're wealthy people. The atmosphere is nice. They have land, they have trees, they have wells of water. All these things they own. They're well-to-do society. Developed and well off. These people came from Mecca to Medina, and there was a gap in that society. Society was no longer, like all of it middle class, or they're slightly, on the margins, on standard deviation, 1, 2, it's okay, but in the main you've got everyone within 1 or 2 standard deviations. You've got huge gaps between those who migrated and those who were the Ansar. So obviously the Ansar, radiallahu ta'ala anhum wa ardahum, they were people who felt that these people were homeless. They have no clothes, they have no money, they have no food, and everything the Ansar owned. So what did they do? They gave them. Here, you come, I'll give you a little shelter in my place, no problem. You can stay with your family. Here, some clothing, donations of clothing for you. Here, food. Sadd hajat, to fulfill their needs, their basic needs. These people migrated, they need their basic needs. So Al-Ansar, they fulfilled their basic needs. And the situation went like this. The Muhajirin, the migrants were living in Medina now with their basic needs fulfilled. No problem. Still, that gap was there. That situation remained like this until Bani Nadir, the event of Bani Nadir. The event of Bani Nadir basically a collection of villages, let's say, outside of Medina. These people, they came without any war or anything. They came and they gave Al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in Medina, this talk here, they gave him a huge amount of money, lots of money. For you, Ya Rasulullah. And Nabi al-A'zam sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he looked, he doesn't take the money. So he called the Muhajirin and the Ansar. He summoned them, especially the Ansar. He spoke to the Ansar. He told them, look, people of Ansar, of Medina, I'm going to give you 2 choices. Lots of money came, millions. He says you have 2 choices. Either, I'm giving you a choice, let's make a decision. Either you share your wealth with the Muhajirin, with the migrants, so this way then I will split the money I have 50-50 between you and them. I'll give you 50 of it, I'll give them 50% of it. Or you don't have to. You don't want to share what you have with your fellow now migrants. They came from Mecca. I know it's not their land, it's not their tribe, it's not their... If you don't want to share what you own, then allow me to give them the entire lump sum, the gift that I have. I'll give them to the migrants, and they can start on their own, and they can divide it amongst themselves. They can do their business, they can build homes, they can do whatever. But living like this just to fulfill the basic everyday drinking water and having a shelter and sleep, and there's a big gap, is not healthy. Which one, whatever you want, I have no problem. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has given the Ansar, the people of Madinah, that choice. Well, there's a lot of money. These people don't have any money. These guys have all the money. So, Al-Ansar, they stood up. They said, Ya Rasulullah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The choice was what? Either they share what they own with the migrants, and then the money will be split half-half, or they won't share, they keep what they own and they do whatever they want, And the money is given entirely to the migrants from Mecca. Al-Ansar stood up. Obviously what you would expect. Naturally, they said, Ya Rasulullah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we want to share what we own with the migrants. We want to give them half of what we have. But also, not only that, and we relinquish our stake in the money and we want you to give all the money to them. We want to share with them what we own. And not only that, the money that you have, we don't want any of it. We want it all giving to them. Yes. وَالَّذِينَ تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Those who entered the home and Iman. History will bow down. History will bow down for this kind of acts of kindness. Those people were unrelated to them, from Mecca to the Madani people. There were no relations there necessarily. They did not even know who they were. But they chose not only to share, not only to give them the money, but to share. الَّذِينَ تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ. They entered the home and Iman before them. Fadila, there is extra here. Al-Quran wants to affirm that it is not words that can carry you. Actions speak louder than words. Actions. You put your action where your word is. Actions come before. Sharing. Sharing is caring, right? That's what they say. So, but wait a minute. What was this? This was more than simply sharing, dear brothers and sisters. The problem with the people accepting, they did not come and say, here's the point, what were these people? Political refugees from Mecca? You could say so. Economic refugees? You can say so. Religious refugees? You can say so. The people in Madina did not say, well, wait a minute, these people are coming, they're taking our jobs. They're living where I live, that's not cool. Because, they're not even, you have no right to be here. You have no stake. They went, Islam took them to a higher level. What does that mean? Notice what the ayah says. الَّذِينَ تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ. In the meaning of the ayah, they love those who يُحِبُّونَ love. They love those who migrate towards them. Love, not their welcoming only. See, they went beyond simply welcoming. They love to share what they have. Because happiness was not about how much money you have in your bank account. You may have all the money in the bank account, but you're still unhappy. Happiness is a smile, maybe. That's why I asked you to smile. Happiness is loving Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Happiness is feeling that you're connected to this world that doesn't end when you die. There's much more to simply being existent in these forms of bodies, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. It'd be an awful waste of creation if it was. وَحَاشَ لِلَّهِ. That he does something that's not wise. He's attributed with wisdom, حَكَمْ جَلَّ جَلَالُهُ. She's giving me another point, no, which means I'll have to stop here. So I'll take a break and then we'll try to continue, inshallah. But keep the ayah in your mind and then remind me where we got. وصلى الله وسلم على محمد وعلى آله. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. But now I'd like to make salam to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But this time with a smile. Not like a smile before or after, with a smile. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik. Not a smile from your heart, not from on your. I don't want the zygomaticus to move only. I want the heart to move. And then a smile. Allahumma salli wa sallim. See, even the atmospheres become different when you make salam to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Smiling. See how that works. So we can just keep doing salam to Rasulullah and now get away with that. Actually, that's the best thing we could do. But I know some people won't let me get away with that. Let's go back to the ayah. الذين تبوأوا الدار والإيمان من قبلهم. Those who entered the home, dar means home, or as you would say in England, home. Is that good? Those who enter home. Australian? Okay. So those who enter home, let me do it my way, the way I was, I know it. I'm not going to get into linguistics here. So those who enter the home, ad-dar, Al-Quran Kareem says. Ad-dar wal-iman, and the faith before the migrants. The Quran uses the word love. Yuhibbun means they love. Not only they welcome or they like, they love those who come over to them. Do you welcome your guests? Like guests to come over? Do you love guests? On a smaller scale, right? We're not going on a bigger scale. We're not saying they're going to stay with you. We're just saying they're going to visit y'all. Okay? يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ. But you know why يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ? You know why they love now? It's no more they simply welcome. It's no more they simply like. I'm not talking about resent. No. There's no. And you know why they now love? Look at the sequence of the ayah. الَّذِينَ تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانِ. They didn't only have the home, but the land, the city of Madina, but they also entered Iman. When Iman entered their heart and Iman washed their heart, they love those who come to them. But Iman, if it's not washing your heart, you don't love those who come to you. You don't like those who come to you. You might not even welcome those who come to you because Iman has not gotten there first. يَتَبَوَّأُ الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانِ. When the Iman enters the heart, توضأ بماء الغيب, right? Make wudu, when you do wudu, and I love you all for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm not telling you this fake. I don't believe in these fake statements. I love you for every single one of you for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for the sunnah of His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And I'm telling you this because it's a sunnah to tell you this. So what I get, what's in return for me? What's in it for me? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may forgive me because I just told you this and I just actually said this in a genuine way. Hadith, in fact. Wow. Forgotten sunnahs. I'm not gonna say forgotten sunnahs that every time I stop, right? Because I trust that you're gonna deduce all these things, so I know you're all academics. The point, dear brothers and sisters, that Iman entered, those who entered the home, the house, and the Iman. It's not the point that you make wudu and you wash your limbs and hands and face. Wash your heart first. Wudu. Then the limbs are easy. Al-Busiri rahimahullah says, Hamziyah, ألف النسك والعبادة والخلوة طفلا وهكذا نجبا. he talks about the Prophet ﷺ. He says he got used to zuhd and nusk, ibadah, worship, seclusion when he was a baby. وهكذا النجباء. This is how great people are from when they're little like this. وَإِذَا حَلَّتِ الْهِدَايَةُ قَلْبًا. When the guidance and the illumination, the nur, when they settle firmly in your heart, نشطت في العبادة الأعضاء. Then the limbs will follow. When the guidance is in your heart, I'm not talking about the cardiovascular muscle either. When the guidance is in your heart, your soul is surrendered. Your soul is illuminated. Your soul is unveiled. When that sakina, that comfort and tranquility and inner peace is in your heart, the limbs follow. You don't have to tell yourself, oh, I have to wake up for prayer. You wake up automatically for prayer. You don't have to tell yourself, oh, no, I have to pray four of them. And you know how it is. Man, we got to pray also, let's get rid of it, man. Let's get it over with. Right? Let's get it over with. أرحنا منها. Like النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم used to say, أرحنا بها. Not منها. أرحنا بها يا بلال. Call the adhan. Call for the salah, O Bilal, so we can enter our comfort zone. Not let's get it over with. Not it's a burden. It's almost, nobody says it's a burden, but you know it's, no, if I just do that, I'm not comfortable. It's not that. Iman. Why did the Ansar not only welcome the migrants from Mecca, but welcome? What kind of welcome? Love those who come to them. What kind of love that made them share what they own? And not only that, actually give them the entire money and don't want to even get part of it, give it to them. Why? Because first there was Iman. الذين تبوأوا الدار والإيمان من قبلهم لا يجدون يحبون من هاجر إليهم. They love those who come to them. They love to pass on the ni'mah of Allah onto others. Allah gave you. Al-Imam al-Hasan ibn Ali. A man knocks his door. I know we don't have time, but I'm going to try to finish actually before we finish. So he knocks his door. Beggar. Hasan. Sayyidina Hasan, he is the son of the Prophet ﷺ, and the grandson of the Prophet ﷺ, a graduate of the school of Muhammad and Rasulullah. Simple, that's all I can tell you. I don't need to give you his biography and introductions. All I need to tell you is he was born and raised in a house that was the landing strip for Jibreel. You'll figure it out. The feathers of the wings of Jibreel were there. In a sense, not in a metaphor. I want you to use your imagination. محابة وحي الله خزان علمه ميامين في أبياتهم نزل. Knocks his door. He tells him, لم يبق لي شيء يباع بدرهم تكفيك رؤية منظري عن مخبري إلا بقايا ماء وجه صنته كي لا يباع وقد وجدتك مشتري. The beggar tells Hassan, Imam Hassan, he tells him, I have nothing left. He knocks his door, he says, before Imam Hassan opens the door, he says, I have nothing left that I can sell that's worth a pound. I sold everything I have. If you look at me, my sight will tell you, it suffices you from me describing, just by looking you know that I have nothing left. He says, the only thing I have left, إِلَّا بَقَايَا مَاءُ وَجْهٍ صُنْتُهُ. The only thing I have left is the dignity of my face, the honor. This is the only thing I have left. I don't want to sell this. That's why I knocked on your door, because I know if I beg people like you, you would give without indignifying me and shattering the honor of my face. When you give, you don't humiliate. So I saved my dignity. The only thing I have left, وَقَدْ وَجَدْتُكَ مُشْتَرِي, and I find you a person who saves the honor of those who beg him, unlike most people. Imam Hassan opens the door just a little bit, not entirely, just a little bit. And he does not look at him. He tells him, عَجَلْتَنَا أَوْ فَاجَأْتَنَا فَأَتَاكَ وَابِلُ بِرِّنَا قَلًّا وَلَوْ أَخَّرْتَنَا لَمْ نَقْصُرِ. He tells his daughter Fatima, daughter Imam Hassan, he says, Ya Fatima, how much do we have in the house? She says, Father, we have 4,000 dirhams. He says, عَلَيَّ بِهَا, bring it to me. She says, Father, how much of it should I bring? He tells her, bring it to me, Ya Fatima. Bring the whole money, not part of the money. Bring it to me. She brings, in amazement, she brings all the thing that, everything they have in the house. He takes it from behind the door and he gives it to the man without looking at his face. He tells him, عَجَلْتَنَا, you surprised me by your question, by your asking. فَأَتَاكَ وَابِلُ بِرِّنَا قَلًّا. So I gave you, I showered on you everything I had. I gave you everything I had. وَلَوْ أَخَّرْتَنَا لَمْ نَقْصُرِ. If you give me more time, I will try to get some more money so I can suffice the needs that you have. فَخُذِ الْقَلِيلِ. Take the little I gave you. Little, Ya ibn Rasulullah. Little. You gave him 4,000 little. People at that time live a whole year with that. That's his saving for the whole year he gave him. But Imam Hassan doesn't see it big. You know, when people give little, they think it's big. La, Imam Hassan was the other way around. When he gave so much, he says, فَخُذِ الْقَلِيلِ. Take the little I gave you. وَقُلْ كَأَنَّكَ لَمْ تَبِعْ مَا صُنْتَهُ وَكَأَنَّنَا لَمْ نَشْتَرِي. Take the little I gave you and pretend that you've never knocked on my door and I've never answered you. Fatima says to him, oh Father, you gave him everything we have. He tells her, Ya Fatima, عَوَدَنِي رَبِّي عَادَ وَعَوَدْتُهُ عَادَ. My Lord gave me a habit and I promised him to do another habit for him. He promised, he made me used to him giving me a lot, and I promised that I would pass on whatever he gives me on to others. The madrasa of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. نحن قوم يقول روح الحفيدة نحن قوم نوالنا خضر يرتع فيه الرجاء والأمل تجود قبل السؤال أنفسنا خوفا على ماء وجه من يسأل. He says we are people who understand. Before we are begged, we give. So we save the honor and dignity of those who are begging. الكرم ما كان ابتداء. ليس ما كان عن مسألة. If you are generous, generosity, he says generosity, رضي الله عنه. He says generosity is what you start, what you initiate. It's not after you've been begged, you give, now you're generous. هذه استحياء, حياء, or circumstance, or peer pressure, or shyness, whatever it is. Barely fulfilling your obligation. La, generosity is what you give before being asked. When Iman came to their hearts, Al-Ansar radiallahu anhum, they didn't have a problem sharing and giving. You see the concept? Because whatever Allah gives them, they pass on also. They're sharing. They know the one who gives because they have Iman first. Iman in Allah. Believe in Allah. Trust in Allah, not in the dollar, or in the pound, or in the money. Their trust in Allah. In God we trust. Right? We say in Arabic, US dollars. They passed on. goes back. And Allah gives you. Because their trust is Allah. Allah is the one that provides. Allah is the one that gives. I want you to see what you're doing. الذين تبوأوا الدار والإيمان. I want to stop here at the point of dar. Why does Allah call Medina the home? As if the ayah entails, this is, though it's the home of the Ansar, but it became the home. The home also for the migrants, ad-dar. It's the home for all. As if the Quran wants to say implicitly, let me just take that little bit, a stretch, okay? But, bear with me. All these boundaries between the cities and the countries. Mecca is a different country at that time. Madina is a different country at that time. These geographical, geopolitical boundaries ought not to stop the ambitions of human beings. Ought not to stop the ambitions of the human beings. Political refugees, economical refugees. Al-Islam did not want to say geopolitical and economical. Al-Islam wanted to put a human face on the whole thing. These are not nameless people, faceless people, but this is a human problem. Therefore, it becomes the home, the home. تبوأوا الدار. It's the home. No borders ought to stop. And I'm not saying you should not. Every country has a law, and Islam wants the people, whatever your citizens of, to abide by the laws of the land that you live in. I'm not trying to make this a political issue. I'm talking totally from a theological principle. Laws ought to be respected and not violated. But Islam looks at things in an ideal way, differently, that if prosperity, if you can go and elsewhere, أَفَلَمْ تَكُنْ أَرْضُ اللَّهِ وَاسِعَةً فَتُهَاجِرُوا فِيهَا. Al-Quran says, isn't the land that Allah created vast? And you can go wherever you want. If you think you can become a positive element wherever you're going to go, and you're going to become a positive contributor, I always concentrate and focus on positive contribution. Because that is who we are, and that's what you ought to be, and that's what we all ought to be. If you're not, then think again. Islam wants you to be a positive contributor, a positive element of society. Not like the Shaykh says, take, but give. Islam is about giving, not only taking. الذين تبوأوا الدار والإيمان. And Islam wants to say, look, it's not about being political refugees. It's not about being economical refugees. It's about a human thing. These people are humans. And this land, this earth is for humans. As long as you don't do evil and corruption, then you ought to be able to be a positive contributor to any community you think you want to contribute to. Ad-dar. So he does not say now, this is the lands of the people in Medina and you people from Mecca are different. No. This is the home. The home. The home, which brings me to another point. The home of all of them, the Ansar and the Muhajirin. At that time, this was the Ummah of Islam. Medina is the home of Islam. The home of every Muslim, in a sense, the spiritual home, I mean. It's a dar, it's the same house. And therefore, we as human beings, we will always disagree with each other. Because simply being different human beings, number one, we have different backgrounds, different levels of knowledge, different analytical faculties and capacities. People analyze things differently. Our intellectual deduction is different. And I always say that if I show you my cell phone, You will see, they're seeing my cell phone. Shaykh Ahmed is seeing my cell phone. I am seeing my cell phone. She's seeing my cell phone. The other one is seeing my cell phone. They're all seeing my cell phone, but everyone sees a different part of it. Everyone observes a different thing in it. We as human beings, we will see things differently at times. Just because we are different sometimes. I mean different in our analytical. I don't think we're different. We may be different colors, different religions, different backgrounds. And as a humanity, as a whole, at the end of the day, we're one people. كلكم لآدم وآدم من تراب. Hadith goes to say, all of you from Adam, and Adam is from clay. At the end of the day, we're one people. Like we, within the household, تبوأوا الدار, those within the house, members of the household, when we disagree amongst each other, all these groups within the Muslims, let's try to remember that we are part of one household. Let's remember that Ad-Dar, تبوأوا الدار, this Dar, Al-Madina, the source of Islam. Well, let's remember not to shred each other to pieces. Let's try to give each other the benefit of the doubt. And first and foremost, let's try to agree on the book and the author. What Allah said, what Rasulullah said, makes things easy. Let's not accuse the intentions of each other. Let's disagree with the actions, but not accuse the intentions. Because we are members of the household, Ad-Dar, this house that gathered everyone. And no doubt Al-Madina as a house, because Al-Madina housed the best of the creation, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It is enough that on the soil of Medina, the footsteps of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam were there, with his ashab, his ahl. I'm not saying that Al-Madina houses the glory of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, make no mistake, because the whole universe does not house his glory. He's much bigger than life, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He's much bigger. His glory is much bigger than to be contained by a city. No. But the city that was the source of these things was there. This is your home. You ought to have a yearning. That's why among the signs of the believers, also, especially those who love Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and all the believers, inshallah, love Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, because that's part of our deen, is that you have a yearning to your spiritual home, yearning to go to Madina. Right? May Allah give you all the opportunity to visit the Madina. To see the beauty. I'm not saying be a mental tourist. That's what people, religious tourists, sorry, not I shouldn't say mental, a religious tourist. Religious tourism, you know what they do, right? They go there and they take pictures of Medina. Oh, what a great wall. Look at this arch. Wow, let me just do it. Wow. Is that what you're going for? To see the stones? You're going to the Kaaba to take a picture of the Kaaba so you can see the stones of the Kaaba? And you think you're making tawaf around the stones? I would like your heart to make tawaf before your body. Don't worry about the stones. Stones come and go. But the love of Rasulullah does not come. Seeing and tasting. Remember I told you taste buds have no curfew? Let your taste buds run wild there. I don't mean by food. I mean by soup for the soul. Soup for your soul. Don't be a religious tourist when you go there. Try to relive it. Try to surrender to the massive spiritual atmospheres that wrap you from every single side. The beautiful Muhammadi breeze, if I may call it, that touches you from everywhere you go in Medina. Try to feel these things. You'll take pictures later. Or mental pictures. Some people don't have cameras, they take mental pictures. That's what I meant by mental. I didn't mean it like psychiatric. Because they start looking and they start, oh wow, this is a great thing. Oh, I like that, I like that, I like that. Anyway. So this is الدار الذين تبوأوا الدار والإيمان. Those who entered the dar, the home, and iman before them, يحبون من هاجر إليهم. With the hadith, I'm going to tell you a hadith all of you know. I'm almost sure all of you know. Hadith صحيح, أسناد صحيح. النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم says, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. Very basic. We teach it to our children, right? 4 or 5 years old know it. None of you will be a complete believer until you love for your fellow brother or sister what you love for yourself. Everyone knows it? How many people practice it? You don't need to answer me or raise any hands or anything. I know I saw many hands. I didn't say I saw many hands raised, I just saw many hands. But you answer yourself. We know the hadith, and the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam tells us that we would not be a complete believers until we love. Again, I didn't say want maybe or like. No. Yuhib, until you love for your fellow brother, sister, whatever it is, than what you love for yourself. Loving. Do we accept that? Or do we want to keep everyone 3 steps behind all the time? Oh, I don't want to. So we can understand why what we're experiencing, okay? يحبون من هاجر إليهم. They love those who come to them. ولا يجدون في صدورهم حاجة مما أوتوا. Not only that, they don't find, the ayah goes to say, they don't find in their hearts anything against them because they shared the money and they even gave them the gift. So now they have actually more. Al-Quran says, لا يجدون في صدورهم حاجة مما أوتوا. They don't find anything in their hearts against them now that they have more. In fact, they love it. There's no that sense of ill competition, not healthy. Unhealthy competition is no longer there. They're happy that the others are happy. Just as happy. Remember, let me give you another hadith which all of you know. When someone sleeps and their neighbor is hungry. Yeah? What is that all about? وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ. And they favor people over them. They favor others. Not only that, they favor them over them. The Ansar favor the migrants over them. Even if they were in need, dire need, خصاصة, dire need, وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَة. Dear brothers and sisters, these are the meanings of the Quran. We're trying to pick some pearls from the oceans of the Book of Allah. There's so many pearls to pick. We don't want to be overwhelmed, but we want to take practical lessons. So we know we can diagnose why are we going wrong, or what is wrong in our physiology or psychology. Is this abnormal or is this normal? Lab values for you all. To see whether you're still in the reference value or you're out. Hypo or hyper? Are you less or more? What is it? Or are you within the range? That's what we're supposed to be so we can be successful. Not only as an individual. Islam does not only care about Islam and Muslims only. Islam cares about every single human being. Islam affirms every single human being the dignity Allah afforded them. Not only human beings, but everything, animals and trees and everything. Accepting people and helping them, wanting to be helpful, act or random acts of kindness when the opportunity arises? Do we do them, or we just pass by him with an eye shut and a heart shut before the eye? When you have an opportunity to do a random act of kindness, do we do it or not? Muslims or not Muslims? Just be kind. Randomly, random, expecting no return, expecting no recognition. That's why I say random. Because I don't want you to expect recognition. We don't want to expect rewarded for what I just did. I just went and visited someone who's sick. I don't know who he is. John Smith just stood there and made prayers for that person. Well, he's not Muslim, so. Well, he doesn't like me. Don't be reactionaries. If you're good to those who are good to you, what good are you? What good are you? If you're just good, you're supposed to be good to those who are good to you. This is the minimum you can do. هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان? Ya habayib, my beloved, let's try not to only say that we have mercy. Islam gives us mercy and teaches us mercy. Let's practice the mercy of Islam. And let's practice the love of Rasulullah. Talk is cheap, but actions speak louder than words. Let's have actions. It's easy to say, Islam, oh, it's the deen of mercy, great. But the minute you disagree, then, heck is loose, or whatever it is that you want to say. Anger and wrath and all these things. Even in the old days, when people come, you have guests, share. We're being just good. Offer. You want to receive mercy? Be merciful. You want to receive more generosity from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Be generous on His creation. You want to see good happening around you? Be the change itself. You be the change. This is what Islam taught us. Shaykh mentioned that about the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ, how they used to bury their daughters, and how An-Nabi ﷺ, when Fatima Zahra, his own daughter, would come in, he would stand up for her. He's the Prophet ﷺ. Sayyidul Anbiya wal Mursaleen. He would stand up and kisses her, and he would have her sit in his seat. When he goes to visit her, she does the same thing. She stands up for him, she kisses him, and she have him sit in her seat. Before they used to bury them and feel ashamed from them. Now the best of the creation stands up for her and kisses her hand or her forehead. روحي لك الفداء يا سيدي يا That's Rasulullah. But lessons from the Seerah. Where do you want to stop? Where do you want to start? And where do you want to end? Where? At which minute should we fast forward to or stop at? Which minute should we go back towards? They have that love. They don't have ill thinking about each other. They don't erect walls of hate under the very banners of love or under the very banners of Islam. No. They love those who come to them. وَلَا يَجِدُونَ فِي صُدُورِهِمْ حَاجَةً مِمَّا أُوتُوا. Even in the old days. Samuel, as a poet, has a poetry. Many of the muhaqqiqeen of the poets, they say it's really for al-Harithi. Anyway, he says, تُعَيِّرُنَا أَنَّا قَلِيلٌ عَدِيدُنَا فَقُلْتُ لَهَا إِنَّ الْكِرَامَ قَلِيلٌ وَمَا ضَرَّنَا أَنَّا قَلِيلٌ وَجَارُنَا عَزِيزٌ He says, the poet says, she's blaming one of the women from the other tribes of humanity or something. She's blaming him. You are a small tribe. You're insignificant. He says, she's blaming, she thinks it's a tarnishing that it's a small tribe, blemish. But I told her, the honorable people are few. If it's about by number, then the honorable people are few. He says, it's not a tarnish. مَا ضَرَّنَا أَنَّا قَلِيلٌ. It's not a blemish that we are few, but because our neighbor is aziz, our neighbor is honorable. We honor our neighbor, and the neighbor of the big tribes is not honored. So this is the measurement. Adi bin Hatim al-Ta'i, known from the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he had ants, because they used to live in the desert, ants living there. He found a nest of ants. Before he sleeps every day, he takes some pieces of bread and he throws them to the ants. They asked him, what are you doing? He said, well, this is my neighbor. I have to make sure my neighbor is fed. Ants. Don't bring ants to your home now, otherwise you might be kicked out of the house, right? And you come back and say, you know, Shaykh Muhammad told me this. I'm not giving you any ideas. Maybe you want to feed the ants outside. If it's legal, again, right? Because Islam doesn't want you to. It's that relation with everything, the multi-dimension of the universe that you're interacting with. You're not only interacting with material 1, 2, 3 physics. The world is more than just physics. Physics, the first thing we learned in physics was what? Matter is what? The mass that occupies space, right? Anyone studying physics here? I hate physics. It's the only subject I scored 70 on, which means barely passing. But I was told afterwards, look, they said 70 equals P, P means pass, and P equals an MD, whatever. So, I didn't like the teacher, actually, that's why I didn't. Her name was Iris. We used to call her Iris the virus. I hope she's not listening to me now. May Allah guide me and her. That's really bad. I shouldn't have said that. There's a camera rolling. Make sure you edit that stuff. That's why Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was the best teacher. People loved him. So they learned. Some teachers, they make you hate the subject. They're like, you love it. You're going in, oh, this is pathology. I love it. Nobody loves pathology, by the way. But anyway, or whatever it is, topic that you like, right? Robbins and Kumar and what's the other one? You know, all these things. But the teachers sometimes make even the most complicated topic lovable because they put you in touch. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made the Sahaba tap into the spirituality that overwhelmed them. Converted a transition of people who bury their daughters to people who stand up for their daughters. Wow. Like the Shaykh mentioned. Okay. Answer in 5 minutes. Or is it now? Which one? 3 minutes. تبوأوا الدار والإيمان. Let's go back to the ayah. The Quran is so beautiful. You just have to dive in it. Just like yourself. Don't just recite with your tongue. Check your heart every now and then. Okay? Lessons from the Seerah. يؤثرون على أنفسهم. Then the Quran says, they favor others over themselves, even if they are in dire need. I'll give you an example. الإيثار, you favor someone over yourself. بيزيد البسطامي رحمة الله عليه. نون big ولي of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, صالح, عابد, زاهد. بيزيد البسطامي. بيزيد البسطامي, he says, I was faced, big scholar at that time. He says, I was faced with a very awkward situation that made me ashamed of myself. This big man says this. He told him, what is it, ya Imam? He said, a man from Balakh came on the way to Hajj, he stopped by my city. So he looked at us, we are zuhad, yani zuhad, people who are detached from the dunya, right? Jama' plural of zahid. I'm not worried about the dunya, etc. You know, I'm busy for the akhirah, I'm not materialistic. These group of people, right? Let's say. He says that young man, Shab, he's a young man from Balakh. And Bayazid was old. Old, big scholar. He says this young man from Balakh, that came from Balakh, which is now probably Afghanistan, or in the borders between Iran and Afghanistan. He says, he put me to shame. I told him how. He says, when he came, he saw this zuhud and all this. He told them, what is the definition of zuhud according to you, or Bayazid and your people? He says, what do you mean? What is zuhud to you? He says, zuhud is simple. Bayazid is telling him, zuhud is when we find food, we eat. We don't find food, we remain patient. If إذا وجدنا أكلنا وإذا فقدنا صبرنا. If we find food, we eat. If we don't find food, we remain patient. That young man told him, this is what the dogs in Balakh do. The Kilab Balakh, he told him, Kilab Balakh does the same thing. When they find food, they eat. When they don't find food, they become patient. He says then, Bayazid is telling him now, he says, Bastami radiallahu anhu. He says, then what is the definition of zuhud to you? He says, إِذَا وَجَدْنَا آثَرْنَا وَإِذَا فَقَدْنَا شَكَرْنَا. If we find food, we favor others. We give it to others. And if we don't find food, we remain thankful, not only patient. Thankful. Wow. Huh? I'll give you another example. We'll finish with that example, inshallah. Couple of examples. Abu Talha al-Ansari radiallahu anhu, from the Ansar. Abu Talha, Allahu Akbar. With our Sahaba radiallahu anhu, all like this. Especially the Ansar, you see this beauty in the Ansar. The house of Abu Talha was a house that is beating with Iman. Literally, as if it's a heart beating with La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. Abu Talha al-Ansari was a wealthy man. He had a big farm that he put his heart and soul into it from when it was not little. All the trees, there's a well of water, wealth, lots of it, and he loved it. Bi'r Ha is called. Well of Ha. That's the name of it. الآية comes. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون. The ayah means, you shall not achieve piety until you spend from that which you love most. He spent his whole life with it. He loves it. It's like him, his land and the trees attached to him. He goes to the Prophet ﷺ. He said, Ya Rasulullah, I have heard this ayah, which means, you would not achieve piety until you give from that which you love most. And this is the most beloved to me in the dunya, so I decided to give it to you, Ya Rasulullah. You put it wherever you want. You give it to whomever you want. He says, give it to your needy relatives. Look at that. He came out of it. One time, a guest came. Himself, Abu Talha al-Ansari. A guest came. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. One riwayah says Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, some say others. Anyway, who can take this guest and feed him and house him, shelter him for the night? Abu Talha says, me, Ya Rasulullah. He took him to his house. He enters, asked his wife, do we have food? She says, we only have barely for the children food. He says, okay, cook that food, prepare it. Turn off the lights. She prepared the food. They turned off the lights, and he put the food for the guest. So the guest ate. Him and his children spent the night hungry. Favor others over themselves, even when they are in dire need. Some people are saying, well, why did he turn off the lights? The candle so the guest doesn't see the hunger in the faces of his children. So the guest doesn't see that the children are hungry and his wife and him are hungry. So he feels uncomfortable eating. Turn off the light. Eat the food in front of him. وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. There's that sweetness when you favor over yourself, because you have such a trust in Allah. You are not doing this because the creation are this and that. That's why we always fail when we always base our actions based on the actions of others. Why are you doing this? Oh, because he did this. She did this. It's not about them. It's not about what they said. It's not about what they did. How are you going to react? What are you going to do? That's what counts. وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. Then Allah says, now is Asr time. I'll just finish with the ayah, so the ayah is complete, so you have at least one tafsir of an ayah. وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ. Which means, the ayah we can spend, this is all one ayah by the way, there's not many, but it has like 6 different sort of scenes. I always divide the ayahs into scenes, because every ayah has multiple scenes. And you want to swim in those scenes, the oceans of the scenes of the ayah, and go along with the waves and how the Quran beautifully takes you. You surf with the ayahs. I used to live in California, it's surf country. Although I never surfed. Should have. I also lived in Colorado for almost 10 years, which is like where the Rocky Mountains, that's where everyone goes in the world to ski. Guess what? I never skied either. Terrible. I feel so bad. I really do. I should have learned how to ski. But we're skiing with the texts now. We're trying to dive in the oceans of the Quran. We're trying to fly in the heavens of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to explore them. Because the sky with it is not the beginning, is not the end. The sky is the beginning only. Okay? وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ. He or she who is saved from their own greed are those who are successful. You see his difference between miser and greedy. Usually being greedy leads to being miser. Why? Because the miser is fearful of poverty. Collecting lots of money, right? Lots of money. Fearful of poverty. I don't want to give it away. So what happens? Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu says, عجبت للغني أو للبخيل يستعجل الفقر الذي هرب منه ويفوته الغنى الذي طلبه. He seeks, he's heading to the poverty that he's running away from. What do you mean? Because he's so miser, he doesn't want to give. So though the bank account is really, really stacked and fat, but he's living poor and dying poor. So he's going towards poverty, though he's trying to escape from it. He's saving, so he escapes from poverty. But in fact, he's only speeding and racing towards poverty. And he says he misses out on the rich or being wealthy that he is actually accumulating. In other words, why? Because he doesn't live wealthy. So he misses out on that. I don't have time to go into that because there are many things in this ayah that we can actually go and see what it means. And because your rizq, ya habibi, is not what you have in your account. People have a mistaken understanding. They think the rizq is, oh, I'm making 200,000 pounds a year, 60,000 pounds a year, that's my rizq. Your rizq is what you're using. What you're using. Because there are many rich people, you know, that have lots of money, but they live poor and they die poor. That was their risk. But what happened to the bank account? They have millions. Yeah, that's what they accumulated. They're going to be accountable for it. They're going to have to answer whether they got it from halal or haram. But it's not the risk. Whose risk is it? Oh, his children. Once he died, they're going to take it, they're going to spend it. That's their risk. It's not theirs. It's not his. He was just meant to collect it. They're meant to use it or misuse it. I'll stop with this one, and I thank you for listening. Whatever I said that is correct is from Allah's tawfiq for me. And whatever I said that was wrong and mistaken is from my weakness and lack of knowledge. And shaitan. Therefore, astaghfirullah li wa lakum. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala sayyidina Muhammadin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.